The big pass. I got this call from Puff. I remember he sounded so depressed. He said that he hadn't left the house in days.
He was one of the only people besides my mother that really cared about me.
And he said, people have been knocking on my door. I just been here by myself. I ain't eat nothing. He was almost sounding suicidal. I just tried to talk some light into what I could hear was a time of a lot of darkness. And just tell him that, you have a lot to live for. Then I remember days later him calling me back, yo, G, come by the studio after work. And he played Every Breath You Take. And he was playing it loud. He was just into it and just played it and kept playing and dancing to it. And I remember him asking me, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think people would rock to this? I didn't know what to say. Because, Every Breath You Take was so white pop. I couldn't hear it or couldn't envision it at the time. But I'm glad to see that his creative juices were flowing again. And then I'll Be Missing You was huge.
It was a runaway hit. He captured the emotions and the grief of the time that was happening to the African American community. We just knew it was helping us remember Biggie in some way.
On a Sunday morning, headed to church and I'll Be Missing You came on. They made it to the gospel station, and that's when I knew who he was.
It was like an amazing grace for the hip-hop generation. When people hear that, it still touches people. He could see things for the culture that other people just couldn't see. And I remember just thinking like, this man is a genius. But while this genius man was developing his talent, what else was not developed? That he became somebody who could create a lot of pain. One of my big motivations of wanting to be a part of this, it's one of those situations where you just have no idea in real time that you're working with somebody that ends up changing the world. It is hard to overstate how important Bad Boy and the Puff sound was to the 90s.
I remember a time where you could listen to the radio for an hour and hear nothing but Bad Boy artists for that entire hour.
Diddy knew how to create what Black culture wanted to see, what mainstream culture wanted to see, what American culture wanted to see.
Puffy started to work with producers that were using samples lifted from records and then taking some of the vocals and interpolating them. Puffy took that to yet another level to sing hooks on top of the rhymes.
I feel like Home and Crew were just throwing things against the wall and everything was sticking.
He was having a relationship with product and audiences from the beginning, but nobody really could see that until the empire got so big. There's like, oh, this is what he's been trying to do all this time.
It was interesting to see Puffy move into other areas other than music. It was just inevitable for the clothing to be next.
We call it urban high fashion. He combined the look of the European clothes to the urban style, which is a little bit loose, a little bit baggy, a little bit more, has a better fit to it.
Sean John was incredibly successful. You saw it go from it's worn on artists to it's worn by influential people in the cultural scene to like a dad in Missouri who's got a Sean John shirt
Could he name any Puff Daddy record? No. But he knows who Puff is, and he's rocking the Sean Jones.
The clothing brand now at this point transcends the music, and it becomes part of this mythology that Sean Combs begins to build. I remember going with him to Macy's, and we were up in the boardroom with all the executives, and they treated him like he was Ralph Lauren. He was a king. There was nobody in New York City that Diddy could not get in touch with. We used to call him Puff the Magic Dragon. And we said that with love. He was so much fun. He threw the best parties. I remember seeing celebrities just let their hair down. I remember seeing Mary J. Blige.
I mean, it was, yes. It was like in the movie. They were huge.
And part of Sean's move with the parties is not just a party for party's sake, but really to embellish who he is in the culture. Who can come to Sean Combs' white party in the Hamptons? It speaks more to a new black and didn't carry a different kind of fashion.
What we heard, even at the time that they were taking place, was there was a lot of debauchery. Puffy would have women laid out and have food on their bodies. These are things that were photographed and publicized and viewed as kind of grand and opulent.
I started blogging in the early 2000s. I started getting reports about the type of things that would happen at these parties. I was hearing about illicit drugs. I was hearing about sexual escapades. I always have decisions to make about stories. And for a long time, when it came to things pertaining to Diddy, I wouldn't run certain things because I feared retribution. He felt and seemed like he was invincible.
I mean, I work like 20 hours a day, and I feel as a young black man, about anything I put my mind to do, whatever I put into it, I'm going to get out of it. And I put 150, 200% into anything I do, always.
Diddy really personified black excellence and authenticity. He was succeeding and he was doing it in an authentically black way. So he was really someone that a lot of us looked up to.
But with money, he got more gangster. He got meaner. He got more no nonsense. He couldn't let your foot off nobody's neck. Foot got harder on necks. Because he knew, yo, if I slip 1 inch, if I show 1 inch of weakness, he gonna take it. I definitely think there's a huge reflection of his childhood to who he is today. Sean started breathing rarefied air before he even realized it. Janice wanted a prince, and the last thing she wants to do is to have her prince making her look bad. And one thing about anybody from Harlem, if you're soft, you're done. That's just the mentality. Because mind you, she lost her husband. Now she got this kid that looks just like me. That's emotions. Some days she'll wake up, she might be mad when she sees him because she sees what used to be Melvin. So Sean's mom had to fill the shoes of Sean's dad and mom. And I'm sure everything from Janice's way of raising him was coming from love. But there were times that I would see Janice's personality go from hot to cold. And he had to be on the receiving end of a hot night or a cold night. Janice didn't take no shit. None at all. She ruled with an iron fist. Better get right. And you know, a lot of times Sean couldn't get it right. Couldn't get nothing right. And she didn't let him get away with nothing. Nothing. And that's how it was in Sean's house. If he did something wrong, he'd get his ass beat. Simple as that. She knew that he wasn't hard enough. In those days, that was the order. You know, you didn't spare the rod. I remember that real vivid. Especially if you don't know punishment really fits the crime. Wasn't my place to say whether it was or not, but to me, no, it didn't seem necessary at times. So he's learning how to be a wolf the hard way. For him, it wasn't as easy. It took a while for him to become his wolf. God damn, when he became a wolf, it was no turning back.
As part of our investigation, we looked at the history of Diddy's behavior and relationship. We have found that there has been a clear pattern of abuse since the beginning, since he was a teenager.
I noticed how he interacted with his girls, and it was way different than I interacted with my girls. It was more physical. It was more self-esteem lowering. It was a lot of insecurity. It was a lot of who you dealing with. I heard you was here. I don't like that. You know, a lot of girls got thrown out the car. Sometimes I would drive his girlfriends home to wherever they lived because they had a fight. So, you know, I was the go-to. I was the, and it was wrong with him. It just never seemed to get better with him and relationships.
One of Combs' first public relationships was with Lisa Hilton, who also grew up in the Mount Vernon area and was a teenager when they started dating.
Any girl that's with Sean has to be fixed to his specs. Sean looked at Misa as his blank canvas, like, oh my God, the dog. Ooh, it was his project. So Misa became somebody in the game.
When you think of the most classic, iconic 90s looks, Misa Hilton was behind them. She was a visionary in her own right, creating some of the best known looks for little Kim.
She really created the mold of what an artist at that time looked like.
My sister Sonia and Misa were close friends. I heard that Puff was putting his hands on Misa in 88, 89. So at that time, I heard a few occasions he was physical with Misa.
They fight all the time. They argue like cats and dogs. And yeah, I definitely seen them put hands on each other. I remember when Misa was pregnant, Sean was in his early 20s. This dude is a millionaire now. He's not even 25 years old. He got millions of dollars. They might have broke up 15 times in a week. They just break up, back together, break up, back together. And here's Sean. Fear is kicking in him. I'm about to be a father. I gotta hustle harder now. I gotta hustle so hard. I got this kid on the way.
One night, Puffy decided that he didn't want Mr. Hilton to go up. He got into this rage and she screamed and her parents came out. He just grabbed the baby. And he said, you're not getting this baby, you're not having it. The father tried to talk to him. He didn't like being talked to. The grandmother tried to talk to him and everything. Eventually they had to call the police. Mr. Hilton, we have felt that something was really happening that she had no control over. This is her life. He was using the baby to control her. That, I think, scared her a lot. He was just angry and upset. He made threats. You know, he was arrested. She endured a whole lot. His mercurial temper. She was one of the few people who got to understand that type of rage, who he was. There was a monster that came out of him that nobody knew about.
Then after Misa, I was Kim.
Kim Porter was a model, sometime actor, great smile. One of those girls that's just like so pretty. She was Andre Harrell's assistant at Uptown Records. Puff told me how they first met. He was working as an A&R at Uptown Records, and that she was the first face that he would see when he got out the elevator. And he had fell in love with her. And he said, by all means necessary, I'm going to get her. And that was his mission.
Puff's a little older now when we met Kim. And Kim was starting to slowly but surely teach Sean what love looked like. It's not fighting all the time, it's this. And he started to receive it. He started changing his ways a little bit. He softened up for a minute. He wasn't so triggered, he wasn't so reactive. He was trying to become a good man.
His relationship with Kim Porter, I knew that it was an on-again, off-again relationship. They would, break up, get back together.
But then there's the infidelity. Kim Porter, a woman he described as the love of his life and the mother of four of his children, witnesses his relationship with Jennifer Lopez just flood the media.
I was there in the beginning of the Jennifer days. Just like all the other girls, Sean goes all the way to get you. Sean wanted J-Lo. And he got it.
When we talk about Kim and Sean, I don't see them the way I saw Sean and J-Lo. They would be at the same function, but not together type thing. Not like him and Jennifer Lopez. You publicly see him at red carpet events.
So what we see is a man who claimed to love this woman more than any other woman, but was not necessarily treated that way.
I've seen him act around Kim in ways that were just awful and very mean. I knew her well enough to occasionally socialize with her. It was a last-minute girl night. Kim Porter and some other girlfriends. And then I see Puffy come into the club. I really thought he was coming in to kick it. I thought he was about to squeeze into the booth. And it was about to be really about to turn up, But everything just turned on a dime. It was not a cool situation at all. He just started hollering at her that she should be at home, not out. And then he grabbed her handbag and literally turned it upside down. He just emptied it out in front of everybody. I was so in shock. The reason people do things like that is just to shame you and make you feel small. To scare you. You never saw him put a hand on her. But as we all know, that's not the only kind of abuse. It was a controlling situation. Buck felt like he could do whatever he wanted to do. Buck was definitely abusive toward him. I remember one time telling him, I understand you having a problem with one person. But when you have a problem with every woman you're dealing with, then you got to look into yourself.
So certainly now we know that there were signs of some of the abuse he would be accused of later. It seemed that because there were never any real consequences for him, his behavior escalated.
I was a producer and an engineer for Bad Boy Records for about 12 years. And Puffy, over time, became more aggressive about what the company could do and what the vision for the company was.
There's a clip of him. He hangs up the phone and he jumps up and he's exclaiming, "Whatever I want, I have to get." It was a really raw moment. It was just a clear window into how he thought and how he operated.
The kids been going to bring Steve Stout.
helped to expose him for who he was and the kind of mafia way he went about, trying to bring people in line.
Steve Stout is a pretty important executive, a marketing genius. In the music business, he was working with Nas at the time. And Puff had done a song with Nas called Hate Me Now.
Just like any other event, this thing was being built up. You heard the Nas joint with Puff? It's crazy.
In retrospect, it almost sounds ridiculous that Nas and Diddy would be on a song together. But of course, Diddy gives Nas a visibility that Nas doesn't have quite yet.
In the video, they ended by being crucified like Jesus, in an obvious visual Jesus analogy. Nas and Puff together.
But then Diddy doesn't like the way that he's depicted in the music video and wants it to be changed.
But the version of the video with Puff and Nas being crucified in the desert was serviced to MTV. And Puff was extraordinarily upset. And he went to Steve's office.
Puffy went in with his people and assaulted. When he did that to Steve Stout, it became one of the biggest stories.
The Steve Stout incident is incredibly telling. I mean, this was over a music video. So what we're learning is that there are almost no lengths that Puffy won't go to if he feels that his ego has been hurt, his pride has been hurt, if his demands haven't been complied with.
He goes into court. And the prosecution came up and said, Judge, we reached an agreement that Mr. Combs would plead to Mr. Puff walks out of the courtroom. One day of anger management. In the courtroom, judge actually said, Mr. Combs, do you remember me? And Puff says, I can't say that I do. So the judge said, you have quite a history because he's always getting away. There are so many cases that the public doesn't know about. A source actually pulled these records. He had this knack for actually getting the system to like him and to go easy on him, where he kept avoiding going to jail.
A lot of this really worked to Puffy's advantage in the hip-hop world. You don't want to be seen as someone that the streets can't respect, where everybody can run all over you.
There ended up being a lot of violence. I think it just was something that was always a part of his emotional DNA in a way.
Diddy, as a child, believed his father, Melvin, died in a car accident. But as he grew older, he came to find out that wasn't really the case. So Diddy learned that his dad was part of a drug organization up in Harlem.
Father, Melvin, was connected to Frank Lucas, one of the biggest drug dealers in Harlem. And he was connected to the mafia.
There is a video Diddy posted on Father's Day where he talks about his dad, and there's a real sense of loss and kind of an admiration as well for him. And the things that people have long said about Combs, that he is really determined, that he's like a world conqueror, he credits those traits to his dad.
Even if we don't know our parents, we still have their DNA in us. I have his hustler's mentality, his hustler spirit, his drive, his determination.
So I think it just was something that he's had to grapple with, that his father had been a drug dealer and had been killed in the game. Sometimes I wonder if that was something he was proud of, or something that he was ashamed of, or something that he may have, emulated. I mean, the record company was called Bad Boy Records. It wasn't called Good Man. It's called Bad Boy.
I worked with Puffy in 2023. Puffy mentioned once that he shot a person in the club when J-Lo was with him. He said he's done a lot of things before, and sometimes he could be a person over exaggerate. It's like, okay, he's talking that stuff. He's been sipping juice or whatever it is. But when I told somebody that, they said no, there was a situation happened in the club with J-Lo where Shine went to jail for the shooting. I'm trying to Google Shine. Only realized no, it's Shyn.
Shine was known around the Flatbush area as a young guy who could spit. And Puffy played on young people's desire to want to be in the spotlight. Sean Puffy Combs said, look, hang with me. He's now being considered the next big thing in hip-hop. He was growing, he was going to be big. No one expected it to turn out the way it turned out.
I will never forget the first time I heard about the 1999 club shooting. It was shocking.
I've spent a quarter of a century with my integrity and my name in doubt in light of the current atmosphere with the lawsuits and all of the stories that have come out. I knew it was time for me to speak up.
This is something that was in my past and it belongs in the past. But I can no longer just remain silent. This is the first time I've shared my story on camera. I started driving for Mr. Combs in 1999. On December 26th, I was informed that Mr. Combs would be requiring my services. I drove down to his studio to pick up Mr. Combs and Jennifer. Mr. Combs got in the vehicle, and I happened at one point to glance over my shoulder, and I noticed him holding a black handgun. No words were exchanged. We made eye contact. He said nothing. I said nothing. And I proceeded en route to Club New York.
I hadn't been in the club scene or anything for the better part of a month. Honestly, I really wasn't going out, but one of my good friends, who's a party promoter, she wanted me to come out, and I wanted to support her endeavors.
Puff arrives with his entourage, and they go to the VIP section.
There started to be a crowd walking through, coming from the dance floor.
People are gravitating towards the VIP section, and there were some people who just say, this guy's showing off. People were telling Puffy, you ain't shit, you ain't this, you ain't that.
Next thing you know, we see pushing and shoving, the crowd is swaying. You hear like angered voices.
And he bumped into Puffy, and Shine just uttered, I'm tired of this shit.
I start to see Puffy and Shine backing up, backing away from the area of the melee towards the door. And I see them reaching their waist. I turn to tell my friends, oh my God, let's go. Watch out, something's getting ready to go down. And just as I turn back and I look at them, I see them both holding guns, and God said to me, be still, you're about to get hit. And I just see the muzzle flash. I grab my face because I instantly feel this hot, scorching flame on my face, and I turn my head and I'm like, oh my God, I got shot in my face. I felt myself separate, and the cold air rushed towards my chest and passed through me. I could feel it pass through me. I was certain that I was going to be dead at that moment because I didn't think a human could lose that much blood and still be alive.
And I knew my life was never going to be the same. At that moment, Puffy is trying to make the great escape. It's just chaos. Shine was in custody of the police. Mr. Combs, his security guy, Wolf, and Jennifer Lopez comes out. I'm instructed to, let's go, let's get out of here. I was driving through the red lights, evading the police. I noticed the rear passenger window over my right shoulder had been opened. I later found out that was when Mr. Combs apparently tossed his weapon out of the vehicle. Mr. Combs and Wolf were screaming, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop," seated next to me. I noticed another gun in Wolf's waistband. And then a cruiser had come out blocking 8th Avenue. And I said, "Chase is over." We were all escorted into the police precinct. That's when, out of the side of his mouth, Mr. Combs says, "Joe, I'll give you $50,000 to take the gun." And he was saying this under his breath, of course, because we were right in front of the desk sergeant. Puffy reaches onto his pinky and says, "I will give you this diamond ring, which is worth $300,000 to hold as collateral if you don't think I'm good for the money." I did not want to take the bribe, but the phrase on the street is, snitches get stitches.
Before it even began, the trial of Sean Puffy Combs had turned into a tabloid torrent.
A high-profile case that's attracted overwhelming support from Combs' diehard fans. Puffy's future is in the hands of 12 jurors who faces up to 15 years in prison on charges of weapons possession and bribery.
Sean Combs, in the early 2000s, is about selling a lifestyle, selling a brand. So he really had to protect his reputation and his freedom at all costs in this moment.
His high-powered defense team, including Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran is known as O.J. Simpson lawyer. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. There was another attorney by the name of Benjamin Rathman, one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the city. So the defending Puffy, Shy, Wolf, and Puffy, they all have separate lawyers.
It was really two tribes. It was this great celebrity, Puffy Combs, and his bodyguard. And Shine, really just a New York City teenager that had just signed the deal of his life.
From the notoriety of the people on trial to the notoriety of the attorneys, it was a circus.
While he's not accused of gunning anyone down, prosecutors say someone at the club taunted Combs that he and fellow rapper Jamal Shine Barrow pulled out guns and fired. Barrow shots allegedly injured 3 people.
Puffy denied from the beginning that he ever fired a gun, that he ever had any guns in his possession.
I want to make this 100% clear. I had nothing to do with a shooting in this club.
During the trial, Puffy's looking around, he's very confident. Hey, I allegedly paid off people, so I have nothing to worry about. But then, liar, liar, pants on fire. I decided to testify. I was the prosecution's main witness.
The most damaging testimony so far from his former driver.
Yes, I was nervous about cooperating, but I had to. You have to stand up for what's right in this world.
Henderson testified Combs had a gun.
I was recanting my statement and no longer
going along with their scheme to take ownership of the gun.
But Fenderson wasn't the only witness to put a gun in Combs' hand.
But I had to testify. I said I saw without a doubt who shot me. I was shot by Sean Puffy Combs. I've said that ever since that day. I never once ever changed that, modified it, modulated it in any way.
I never expected to be a part of such a reckless act of violence.
Nathaniel, she had the kind of resilience and defiance. My heart was with her.
The defense described a two-pronged approach. First, calling their own witnesses who say he didn't have a gun at the nightclub.
Most of the witnesses who came up said Shine had a gun, and we did not see a gun in Puppy's hand.
And second, discrediting the prosecution witnesses who put a gun in Puffy's hand.
The lead defense attorney, his cross-examination was getting a bit aggressive. I said, I'm not the one on trial here today, Your Honor. He is. And I pointed and glared right over at Diddy. Some people said this was a conspiracy.
People cursed me out, accusing me of trying to take down a good black man and destroy hip-hop.
My heart really, truly breaks for Natanya and what she has been through. Natanya deserved nothing but compassion and protection, and the culture failed her.
They were ridiculing me on the air saying, does anybody know this one-eyed hoe? Call us up and give us some dirt on her. Playing rapid succession gunfire soundtrack in the background. I was devastated. Why were they doing this to me?
After the shooting, Nathaniel, she was appearing on the radio and trying to tell her story to actually getting death threats.
I would look out the windows and there'd be blacked out SUVs parked on the corners by my house. Those SUVs were watching me, and for my own safety, I had to be moved.
I will never forget that day when the verdicts were read. A gasp went up in the courtroom.
I'm just really right now, I'm just very emotional. I'm at really a loss. I'm very emotional. I feel blessed.
It was like Mardi Gras. They all went out to celebrate. And not only was Sean Combs acquitted, but Anthony Wolf Jones was also acquitted. And of course, Shine Barrow was convicted.
I spoke to Shine. Shine says, look, he lied on the stand. He got people to lie for him. Puffy betrayed me. Those were his words. He went in there and he lied about the fact that he didn't have a gun. Everybody knew pretty much that Combs had a gun. When I found out the verdict, I was shocked and disappointed at our legal system. But I was relieved because I did not want to be the guy that sent him to jail. I didn't want that for my own safety.
I was a child of hip-hop. I didn't deserve this. I was a victim. I wanted justice.
Went to try and console Shine's mother, grandmother, and as we left that day, there were still supporters outside, but no one really cared about him at that point. He was yesterday's news. When he was convicted, I got angry because there are families that are giving young people to you, Puffy, and you have a responsibility to these young people on your record label.
I think it was an attempt to take down another rap star. And I think that clearly we proved his innocence. He was, in fact, a victim that night. And I think you're going to see great things from him for the future.
I think it was pretty clear to most people that at the very least, he hung him out to dry. And at the very worst, Shine took the fall.
There was a city college incident, Steve Stout incident, and the nightclub shooting.
He's getting this reputation of being a Teflon Don.
And that is a pattern that we continue to see, is that even when things are really, really bad for other people, for Puffy, just a blip.
He was getting away with things for so long. But I believe the truth will always find its way, even in the dark.
Thanksgiving break in November of 2023. I got a call. Your rape was caught on tape. I said, what do you mean my rape was caught on tape?
I didn't even call Sean to tell him I was doing this. I don't want the public's perception to be swayed as if this is a payoff or if this is a favor. This is just brotherly love. So there was one day, me and Sean went up to my mom's house. My parents used to love to play blackjack. And everybody's sitting at the table playing cards and they see us come in. And at that time, we had the germ of fame. Had a record or two on the radio. They say, y'all play a hand of cards with us. Y'all got all the money. Sean didn't know how to play blackjack. We played one hand of cards with them. Cards is being dealt. Sean doesn't know to turn his card over and only reveal one. So he had both of his cards turned up, and he wasn't hiding them. And people laughed. Boy, you better hide your cards. Don't be showing your cards. And he looked at me like, yo, what I got? I said, you good. Don't even worry about it. You're going to win. He said, what you mean? I said, you're going to win. Don't worry. You got 20. It takes 21 to win. He said, for real? He says, is it guaranteed that I win? I said, it ain't guaranteed, but shit, it's damn near guaranteed. He said, I want to be guaranteed I win. Give me another card. Everybody at the table looked at him like, boy, are you crazy? Dealer deals the card, and it's an ace. 21. The whole I didn't even call Sean to tell him I was doing this. I don't want the public's perception to be swayed as if this is a payoff or if this is a favor. This is just brotherly love. So there was one day, me and Sean went up to my mom's house. My parents used to love to play blackjack. And everybody's sitting at the table playing cards and they see us come in. And at that time, we had the germ of fame. Had a record or two on the radio. They say, y'all play a hand of cards with us. Y'all got all the money. Sean didn't know how to play blackjack. We played one hand of cards with them. Cards is being dealt. Sean doesn't know to turn his card over and only reveal one. So he had both of his cards turned up, and he wasn't hiding them. And people laughed. Boy, you better hide your cards. Don't be showing your cards. And he looked at me like, yo, what I got? I said, you good. Don't even worry about it. You're going to win. He said, what you mean? I said, you're going to win. Don't worry. You got 20. It takes 21 to win. He said, for real? He says, is it guaranteed that I win? I said, it ain't guaranteed, but shit, it's damn near guaranteed. He said, I want to be guaranteed I win. Give me another card. Everybody at the table looked at him like, boy, are you crazy? Dealer deals the card, and it's an ace. 21. The whole table went ham. Oh my God, who is this boy? Took all the money off the table, put it in his pocket, and we left. Everybody's yelling for him to come back. And no, I won. Who does that? That's Sean. All or nothing. That's it. That's who he is. Sherlock Holmes. You can never count him out. It's like the life of a cat. Nine. Shit.
I think that what has happened in Puffy's life is the byproduct of extreme good fortune. And that extreme good fortune can also be a paradox of power. It's a yin and a yang. In order to get all the goodies, you've got to have this confidence that you can get all the goodies. And so Puffy created a cult of personality.
After the nightclub shooting, when he was acquitted, he went into PR overdrive.
He said we had to have one name.
He rebranded himself as P. Diddy.
He wanted to put a clear divider between who he was and where he's going.
You know, I don't really just play by the rules, and I create my own rules.
Puff wanted to get rid of this image of him as a toast.
He's changing his name. Is he a changed man?
Puffy knew how the media worked, and he knew how important it was to maintain an image.
I have a big announcement to make today. I will run the New York City Marathon. to raise money and awareness for 3 charities.
We start to see Sean Combs engage in these kind of stunts. In the 2004 election, he starts to talk about this voter guide campaign.
This election is like that. Now we're going to be voting.
He's now mingling with future President Obama at the time when Obama's career was on the rise.
I want to say how much I appreciate about that for doing the kinds of work that he's doing, because he doesn't have to do this.
Sean Combs shows up in a Broadway production that's revisiting A Raisin in the Sun, one of the first plays by a black woman produced on Broadway.
John P. Diddy Combs is winning the audiences on Broadway.
Combs on the way to rise again.
Is there anything this man can't do?
Was seen to many people in the media as a safe person of color. At the time, reality TV was exploding. There were all these competition reality shows with mega moguls in different aspects of culture. And there were contestants vying to be able to have it on their resume. They worked for Trump. They worked for Paris Hilton. But they worked for Diddy. I was the director of photography and co-executive producer of I Want to Work for Diddy on VH1. You have to work for I Want to Work for Diddy. I was quite blown away that I was actually directing this guy and telling this guy what to do. I think to work for a narcissist, you have to become one. And I think that's what the show's success was. Exposing the narcissist in Diddy. The last episode of I Want to Work for Diddy starts at the London Hotel. The brand spanking new, never slept in presidential suite. I was planning to go up and talk to Sean and block it out with him before we started. My AD's with me, and I knock on the door. I come in, and to the right is this pretty grandiose staircase. So I'm standing there a good 5 minutes. He comes down, he's got a robe on, it's open, and he's got nothing on. Just naked. Like it was nothing. He knew I was there. He knew we were waiting. It was a moment where it's like, wow, I guess somebody at that level can really, truly do and say whatever they want to do and say. Period.
From the outside, he was this mogul. He was this guy who, could make your dreams come true. But then there was the other side who might not be so safe. I have not shared my story in a public way, in a very truthful, uncensored way. I was one of 5 girls in Danity Kane on Making the Band 3.
The premise of the show was Diddy was going to find the next superstar group.
Our first album was #1 on the Billboard charts, first week out. We beat Christina Aguilera and Outkast, was our first single, Showstopper. Like, I love the fact that fans still listen to Danity Kane. It takes a lot for me to allow you to have your experience and not taint it, and still understand what my experience was. And it was not a good experience. Hearing some of those songs bring up awful memories. I see myself standing in those dark, scary, predatory spaces and hearing somebody say some of the most degrading things to me, and at the age of 20 and 21, having to figure out how to navigate and not let that person break me down. I remember one time where he had the cameras there while we were trying on clothes so he could watch us. He's going to point this little camera at us for Diddy so he can judge our appearance. I call it Jedi mind tricks. This happened so early on. He was going one by one, just critiquing our style. And when he got to me, it wasn't about the clothes.
What's your stomach looking like? Feeling a little thick?
And I was like, well, next to these skinny girls, I'm always gonna look thick.
I'm working out, I'm running. I always feel big next to these skinny chicks. Puff would just say, you look like, you one cheeseburger weight. You know that, right? You know that you one cheeseburger weight. Like, he wanted me to agree with him.
You're like a burger away.
And it was like I had to just take it, grit my teeth, and let him say what he wanted to say.
I remember feeling like Diddy was this tough love boss. But looking at making the band through today's lens makes it clear that the body shaming, verbal abuse, intimidation was rampant.
He was singling out different ones of us, especially Aubrey. Aubrey always stuck out as one of the stars, one of the fan favorites. He had an aggressive, intimidating way with her. I remember one scene where he was like, what do you have to say?
Aubrey, ain't nothing to say? You got such a big mouth when I'm going. What you gotta say? Say it now.
The way Puff and Aubrey went back and forth was very uncomfortable to witness, to watch.
He was the hardest person that you can work for, and it was torture. And not the work part of it, but the other stuff.
I remember her sharing with me that he had sent her a lot of very inappropriate pictures. I saw a lot of things that he would email her, very sexual in nature, very just like overtly like pornographic, like things that he wanted to do to her. She was just kind of like, what do I do? I remember telling her, girl, put that in a folder, send it to your mama, save that. Aubrey and I decided to go to New York for Fashion Week. Aubrey came into my hotel room and told me that she ran into Puff in person and he had pulled her in close, and he said, now you're hot enough that I can now. It was like a moment of shock, a moment of your stomach turning, a moment of just like, we're definitely in over our heads. And then all of a sudden it was this mandatory meeting that needed to happen. We thought we were off. We thought we had finished filming. It was just like, what in the entire? So what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Yeah, we just walked into the Lions Den. We get to the bad boy offices. We're in the conference room. It was very Donald Trump apprentice style.
The vision that I had for the group, this ain't the vision that I want. You know what I'm saying?
The whole group of them became sitting at the table. Puff was saying to Aubrey, she was promiscuous, saying that he didn't like her image and her body.
I don't like what she does to the brand, when she's wilding out there, being overly raunchy, promiscuous.
Puff fired Aubrey.
I don't want you in the vision no more.
And then he turned to me and said, get out.
You can go too.
I believe that he fired Aubrey, one, because she did not succumb to his advances. Two, because he wanted her to feel powerless and question her worth. I feel like that's part of the same reason why he probably got rid of me too.
At the time, the press was really very much against the girls of Danity Kane, making it seem like they were the problem.
There is a real sense of fear surrounding Diddy If you go through a timeline of its history, there is that kind of sprinkle or a trail of violence, of aggression, of intimidation that has popped up throughout the years, but it always kind of was explained away because Diddy is so big and has so much power. By 2007, Diddy's wealth just starts rapidly multiplying.
Sean Combs is one of the most influential beacons in luxury culture today.
He then lands a huge partnership with Diageo.
I'm proud to announce a groundbreaking strategic alliance between myself and Ciroc Vodka.
He becomes synonymous with this brand, and he transcends everything that he had been before.
This would prove to be so lucrative for Diddy. He later expands to tequila with De Leon. Over the course of the relationship, Diageo paid Combs $1 billion.
I am the American dream. This is Black History.
He continued to expand his brand. He got into media with Revolt TV. I am the former managing editor and global news anchor for Revolt TV.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Mara Escampo.
It was the only place I've ever worked where I felt like I could show up 100% as my authentic self. There was one experience that I actually found to be quite funny, where I had a bottle of Casamigos that I had to leave in my office. When I got back to my office, the bottle was in the trash. They said if Puffy had come in and seen a bottle of Casamigos, meaning something that was not De Leon, he would have gone ballistic. To be successful in business, you have to take your brands very, very seriously, and clearly he did that.
What's going on? Just sending you some love. We all said we working hard. We know y'all working hard.
My experience in the Diddyverse was actually quite positive, although I did not directly work for him. But what we've heard from those who have worked with him is that he used the same fear and intimidation and coercion tactics in the workplace as he did with his enemies.
I was Puff's personal chef. Since the news broke about Puff, it brought everything back. I've been quiet for 17, 18 years, and because of it being brought back, I went into a trunk that I have in my house that actually had my journal entries from around that time, and I read over them. And there's a lot of things that I forgot or buried. I started working for Puff in the summer of 2007.
Sean Combs, personal chef.
I was in my early 20s. I'm just like, I'm excited. His level of success, his level of power, and his reach. Who wouldn't want to be associated with him? Puff was the top.
Sure. Mr. Combs would like to see what we got for dessert.
I was definitely intimidated. I have some of my journal entries here. Puff would notoriously berate you, embarrass you, belittle you. I was having constant anxiety attacks and heart palpitations. I was diagnosed with stress-induced alopecia. My hair started to fall out. And then I saw a cardiologist who said that my body couldn't handle the stress levels. He said to me, if you keep this job any longer than a year, you'll be dead. When I discussed what was going on with a few other people that worked, it was kind of like a joke. It was like, oh yeah, well you're official now. Welcome. You're not really official until you have some sort of breakdown around here. I think his expectation of others was how he operated within his own life. He really is a can't stop, won't stop, no sleep. That is really how he operates. But there's also a lot of drugs being used. I saw lots of different pills. I know that there was like ecstasy, definitely alcohol. So I kind of was like, he's just tripping because he's coming down. Like, I'm not paying him any attention. But there was a specific time Puff comes downstairs and he's yelling, I'm so tired of hearing about you and your attitude, and all you gotta do is cook the food.
me and him are like face to face like this, and he's just like he does like this to my forehead, and he's just like, you know, like, and I'm telling him like, don't touch me, and now tears are coming down my eyes, and he's like, you crying, and there's kids starving in Africa, and you over here crying, and all you gotta do is cook food. He was just getting madder and madder, and so I walk away, and I'm opening up the refrigerator. I remember him saying, yeah, you crazy. And then I just remember slamming the door and being like, yeah, that's right, I'm crazy. You know what else? I quit. Me saying that I quit, like, enraged him more. Because he's like, you can't quit on me. You can't quit on me. And I just remember turning around and saying, and when I turned around and I said that to him, he used all of his force and he just shoved me, like he pushed me. And I went flying outside of the doorway, and I ended up on my elbows and my butt. I'm telling the office, I'm gonna sue this mother. They understood that I was upset, but they're like, if you sue him, your career is over. You will be blackballed. He does have the power to do that, and he will do that. That scared me. So I kept quiet about things that I knew because I was afraid that something might happen to me.
I've seen Diddy in incidents with multiple women with violence. One time I remember telling him, yo, I think you got a problem. He looked at me and he was like, I ain't got no motherfucking problem. So he said, sometimes you just gotta let these hoes know who the boss is. From 2006 to 2012, nobody else spent more time with Puff than I did. This is everyday bodyguard. It meant so much to me to get with Diddy because of who I was and what I've been through. I was incarcerated for a little while, so to me that was a stepping up. One of the reasons that I got with Puff was because he was an older guy, so I felt like it's just a matter of time before he simmers down. But he was still waking me up at 4 or 5 in the morning talking about, yo, we getting ready to go to the club. And I remember lots of drugs. When he was on drugs, it enabled him to stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time. At that time, you had different people that Diddy did respect, telling him you need help. And when that didn't happen, I seen a spiral, and the spiral was going down. There was a time he had a fight in Miami, and when we was running out the door, he seemed to think it was funny. Looked at me and he told me, he said, I got time, boss. I said, what you got time for? He said, I got enough money for one more big fight that I could pay the people off. In my mind, I was like, yo, this dude is crazy. Who wants to get into a fight to have to pay somebody? Diddy, he always wanted you to agree with what he said. And if you don't agree with what he said, he had his way of getting rid of you. Coming home from jail, I couldn't move on to nothing better. And so I was even willing to turn a blind eye to some of the bad things because Diddy would always say, you should be thankful for being here. He was just a master manipulator. So when I look at him now, I say the respect that I had for him, the way that I looked up to him when I first started, is all gone because I know it's a facade.
I like to value my success on not the monetary aspect, but how many lives I can touch and change and help to get a chance to.
Diddy did such a good job of presenting himself. And so I, like most of the world, did not fully realize the extent of the darkness. Lil Rod is the first man that has come forward with some of these allegations of sexual assault. There are a lot of things that stood out in Lil Rod's lawsuit. Mr. Jones witnessed, experienced, and endured many things that went far beyond his role as a producer on the Love album.
When I started working with Puffy, I was very, very excited. For me, I had already won just to be sitting in a room with him. It didn't get any better than that. But knowing everything that I know now, I would never work with Puffy. My name is Rodney Jones Jr., also known as Lil Rod. I produced the Love album off the grid for Shauna Combs. Working with Puff, you never know who you're dealing with. So some days he would walk in and be one of the coolest guys. And then some days he walked in and he's just being a thug. I remember one time he was asking me how much was I going to charge him for working on his album. Before I knew it, he was up in my face. He's like, yo, you don't charge me no money. I'm Puff Daddy. I'll eat your face off. I never got paid as a producer for the Love album. Still to this day. Puff making threats, that's who he is. A bully in a suit. Puffy crossed the line so many times. We were at Puffy's Los Angeles house, working in the studio. He says, I'm gonna work in my bathroom. Everybody bring everything. So we break down the studio, get the instruments, and go to his bathroom as usual. And he strips himself in front of us and jumps right into the shower. But he's looking directly at me. You know what I mean? I found myself getting a pat on my butt. Felt uncomfortable and still feels uncomfortable. I was very unsure what to think and how to feel. It's not something I ever want to happen again. I did at some point raise this issue to one of the chief of staff. She would tell me, oh, that's just this way of showing he likes you, loves you. You should just downplay it like it's nothing. And it just happened over and over. Working with him, there was a lot of abuse that came with it. There's so much more that he did. Puffy would require us to go to the club and bring back multiple choices of women for himself or whoever he deemed necessary to have fun with. So more than often, we did spend a lot of our time going to the strip clubs to get sex workers to bring back to the house. You'll see girls come at the Miami house. That happened quite often. Lots of women, lots of partying, lots of drugs, lots of alcohol. I even found myself a couple of times waking up next to some of the sex workers. And, you know, it felt like it just went from 0 to 10, like, quickly.
What do you think happened when you see both that sex workers that?
I feel like I was for sure drugged. I feel like the drinks were spiked. It's not like I don't know how to handle my liquor, so for me to be having a drink and wake up trying to remember exactly how I got here, what's going on, I can only imagine if somebody tapped me. Everybody was sipping on the Puffy juice. That makes me feel very used, abused. It makes me feel like Only a monster can do this.
As disturbing as Lil Rod's lawsuit was, there have been more shocking things that have come out.
I tried to put it away for all these years. But even now, it's a lot. The color red for me is a trigger. It took a lot to wear this red shirt today. You know, because it's a process. I'm trying to get there. I can't listen to any bad boy music without it triggering me. I cannot hear his voice without it making my stomach hurt. That effing monster. Back in 2000, I was living in Queens. I was a mom in the middle of a divorce. So, kind of maintaining house and home first. And then I started dating a bad boy executive through my boyfriend. I met Sean Combs at Daddy's House Studio. It was just a normal, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the fam. Welcome to Bad Boy. That was the atmosphere. Very fun, very upbeat. At that time, Diddy was the jokester, the prankster. But now, thinking back, Diddy would make remarks that if you have to really think back to it, it's like, ugh, a little weird. Like, hey, don't leave her alone over here. You got a pretty girl. She's a little thing. Now, in hindsight, it's like, we're prepping yourself for the kill. And then what happened in 2001 changed my whole life. I was home in Queens. I got a call from one of the people at Bad Boy Studios. They said, Puff wants to talk to you because your boyfriend is up at work again. There was nothing alarming about Puff wanting to talk to me because we've had a conversation about him screwing up at work prior to this, to get him back on track. For a little while later, this burgundy Escalade pulls up, and Puff was sitting in the back. So I jumped in the back, and he said, hey, what's up? Do you want something to drink? I said, sure, what you got? And he was drinking something in a red soda cup, and he gave me a clear glass, like a little cup, with some white in. By the time we got to Daddy's House Studios, I started feeling a little woozy, lightheaded. I kept doing this, trying to feel my face because I kept feeling a little numb. I remember getting out the Escalade. Still, I'm thinking we're going to go to the studio and my boyfriend's going to be there. But at this time, we went down the hallway to a door and a lounge that I'd never been to. And I remember sitting on the dark couch. Puff was sitting there on the couch with me. And I'm not sure for how long I was sitting there. And I started feeling a lot more fuzzier. And I remember crying. And the next thing I remember was I was slammed on a pool table. I was naked on the pool table, and my hands were tied behind my back. And I kept trying to do this to try to figure out what was tying me. It felt like plastic bags. Puffy was standing by the bar, and he was naked. There was a jar on the bar. He put on something on his privates that, like, I smell it. It smelled like menthol. And he was slathering it in. So I was still trying to figure out what's going on. And Puppy came up behind me and went straight in my anus to where I ended up throwing up on the pool table and screaming. And I'm not sure if there was anything coming out my voice while I was screaming, but I could feel the burn anally. And I was trying to kick him. I'm short, so my feet wouldn't even touch the ground, and I was trying to kick him, and I was trying to hold on to the table at the same time. At some point, Puppy stopped, went back to the bar, wiped himself off because I'm looking at him like this, still tied, and trying to see everything I possibly can, and trying to focus because it was a big blur. And then he came back and went into me vaginally. And he said something, not sure what he said or if he was even talking to me. And then when I came back to, I was back on the couch. I had stuff all over me, from throwing up, drooling, whatever it was. But this time, I didn't have the ties anymore on my hand. I had red panties on, couldn't find my panties. I remember putting on my bra, putting my dress on. I don't even remember if I put the dress on correctly. And I ran out the door. I was terrified. I just didn't want to die. I remember running out, going downstairs, and running down the block. I didn't see anybody. I was just gone. I ended up calling a cab driver that I knew. When he came and picked me up, he jumped in the front seat. I was a mess. And he was in shock. His exact words were, "What the F happened? Did you get hit by a truck? A car? Do you have an accident?" And he was checking out my wrist because I had bruises and welt on my wrist. And he took me straight to Elmer's Hospital. I couldn't go in. I couldn't go in. I couldn't move. I was scared. Not just for my life. I was scared for my parents finding out. Just because, I didn't want to embarrass them. I didn't want to embarrass myself. And I didn't want to go to the police because I was in the middle of a child custody battle and a divorce. I didn't want anything stopping this process. And he was trying to convince me to go into the hospital, and I just wanted to go home. I just sit in the shower for about an hour, and that's what I did. Trying to scrub. Literally, it's like scrub your life away. I have stayed in bed and hiding from my parents for 3 days in the same household because I still couldn't fathom what happened. It didn't seem real. And then came the questions. Why me? We were supposed to be cool. We were supposed to be like friends. We were supposed to be, you know me. Those were all the thoughts going through my head while I was hiding. Soon after that, I got a call, and it was Puff. I was terrified. He said, "Hey, keep your effing mouth shut. And then he hung up the phone. Puffy has ways of finding out stuff and making things happen. I need to get the hell away from New York. I ended up disappearing for a few years. I was a total wreck, hanging on to sanity by a thread, trying to cope with being raped and assaulted, trying to raise a child, depression, trying to fight every day to keep yourself alive. Because at that point, there was nothing there. There was nothing to say, okay, you got tomorrow to live for, right? So every day was a battle. Every day was a struggle to try to keep me from either killing myself or doing something stupid. Today, I'm still coping with and trying to get through it. Because November of 2023, I was told by my ex-boyfriend that my assault was actually recorded on tape. For me, it was like, why would somebody record raping somebody? And then you show it to other people. I was so angry. And then he said, do you see what's happening in the news with Cassie?
Sean Diddy Combs, a disgraced music mogul. Sean Diddy Combs facing a slew of allegations, including rape and sex trafficking.
She opened a can of worms with Puff.
Of unwanted sexual encounters through the use of illegal substances and threats of violence. The acclaimed music producer vehemently denying the allegations.
I always believed that I was the only victim.
These are the first of what could be scores of lawsuits.
Definitely looking at a piece of property that is owned by Sean Combs.
It has been a staggering fall from grace.
Thanks for watching. I'm gonna do the other rest of them tomorrow.